Your baby's body is building itself right now. In these first months, faster than at any other time in their entire life, the spine is curving, the hips are forming, the core is strengthening, the hands are learning the world, and the feet are preparing for a job they have not even started yet. And here is what almost no one tells new parents. Some of the most common, well-meaning, widely sold baby products and habits are quietly working against that construction. Not dramatically, not in ways you would ever notice in the moment, but in small, daily ways that the developing body registers and responds to. I am not here to make you feel guilty about anything in your nursery. Almost every parent uses at least one of these. I used several of them myself before I knew better. I am here to take you on a tour, a head-to-toe tour of your baby's developing body, and show you at each stop what that part of the body is silently asking you for, and what might be quietly getting in its way. We start at the spine, we end at the feet, and by the end you will see your baby's body, and half the products marketed for it, completely differently. Let's begin. Stop 1. The spine starts at the center of everything. A newborn spine is not shaped like yours. It is curved into a soft C, the same gentle curve they held in the womb. That curve is not a flaw to be corrected. It is the correct, healthy, developmentally appropriate shape for a brand new spine. And over the first year, through movement and strengthening, that C will slowly develop the curves of a mature spine that can eventually hold a body upright. What that developing spine needs is support that respects its natural shape. And what works against it is anything that forces it into a position it is not ready for. This is where one of the most common habits comes in: forward-facing baby wearing. When a baby is worn facing outward, two things happen to that developing spine and the hips beneath it. The spine gets pressed flat against the parent, losing its natural curve, and the legs dangle straight down, unsupported, which we will come back to at the next stop. The International Hip Dysplasia Institute recommends inward-facing carrying for the first 6 months of infancy specifically to support healthy development. When a baby faces inward, they can curl naturally against you. Their spine holds its proper curve, and their whole body is supported the way it is designed to be. What the spine is asking for: carry your baby facing in toward you for at least the first 6 months. Keep their spine in a natural supported position rather than pressed flat. Baby wearing done this way is one of the best things you can do. Research shows it improves bonding, supports breastfeeding, and in one randomized study reduced daily infant crying by significant amounts. The key is simply the direction your baby faces and the support their spine receives. Stop 2. The hips move down from the spine to the hips, because this is where the most preventable damage quietly happens. A baby is born with immature hips. The hip socket is still soft, still forming, still learning to hold the ball of the thigh bone securely in place. Through the first 6 months especially, those hips are developing rapidly, and how the legs are positioned during all those hours of holding, wearing, and sitting directly shapes how those hips form. There is one position the developing hip loves above all others. Doctors call it the M position, sometimes the spread squat. The thighs spread apart, the knees bent and lifted slightly higher than the bottom, the thighs fully supported. In this position, the ball of the thigh bone sits deep and secure in the developing socket, encouraging it to form correctly. And here is the striking part. The M position is so beneficial for hip development that it is nearly identical to the position doctors use in the Pavlik harness, the medical brace used to treat hip dysplasia. Research has documented an association between baby-wearing populations who hold infants in this position and lower rates of developmental hip dysplasia. What works against the hips is the opposite of the M legs dangling straight down and close together, which is exactly what forward-facing carriers and certain seats produce. Holding a baby's legs tight and straight for long periods does not give the hip socket the gentle pressure it needs to form correctly. What the hips are asking for: whenever you hold or wear your baby, aim for the M. Knees up and out, slightly higher than the bottom, thighs supported. Avoid anything that holds the legs straight down and press together for long stretches. The hips are doing critical construction work in these months, and the M position is the scaffolding they are asking for. Stop 3. The core now to the center of strength. The core. The muscles of the trunk that everything else depends on. Here is something fundamental about how babies develop. They build strength from the inside out and through their own effort. A baby learns to hold their head up, then to sit, then to crawl, then to stand, and every one of those milestones is built on core strength that the baby develops by working against gravity, on their own, through movement, which is why one of the most common categories of baby gear can quietly interfere: developmentally inappropriate seats, and the broader problem of what specialists call container baby syndrome. When a baby is placed in a seat that props them up before their core is ready, particularly seats that are lowered in the back, tilting the pelvis backward and forcing a slouch, the baby is held in a position their own muscles cannot yet achieve. They are not building the strength. They are being held in a shape. And as Nebraska medicine specialists describe it, when a baby moves from one container to the next all day, seat to jumper to walker to bouncer, it reduces their opportunity to kick, turn, wiggle, and do all the natural movements that actually build development. This is also where jumpers, activity centers, and walkers come in. The fabric seats do not properly support an immature spine and hips, and walkers specifically are not recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics due to the injuries associated with them. There is even research suggesting that walkers can reduce a baby's desire to walk, rather than helping them learn, because the baby is being moved through a skill their muscles, joints, and bones have not yet built themselves up to. What the core is asking for: floor time. The single best thing for a developing core is a baby on the ground, doing tummy time, rolling, reaching, eventually crawling. The American Academy of Pediatrics and guidelines, across several countries, recommend building toward at least 30 minutes of tummy time daily by around 6 months, started gradually from birth. If you use seats and jumpers, treat them as occasional tools, roughly 15 minutes, 2 or 3 times a day, rather than the place your baby spends their hours. The floor is where the core gets built. Stop 4. The hands. Now to the hands, and one of the most surprisingly important stops on this tour. A baby's hands are not just hands. In these early months, they are one of the primary ways the baby explores, learns, and even regulates themselves. Babies bring their hands to their mouths to calm down. They use their hands to find the breast. They transfer bacteria from their own skin and their parents' skin into their mouths, which, far from being a problem, actually helps build their microbiome, an important part of overall physical health. The hands are a sensory organ, a self-soothing tool, and a learning instrument all at once. And this is where a tiny, unassuming product quietly interferes: baby mittens. The logic of mittens is completely understandable. Babies have tiny, fast-growing, nearly uncuttable nails, and they scratch themselves. Mittens solve that. But they also cover up one of the baby's most important tools for interacting with the world. A baby whose hands are covered most of the time loses access to all that sensory input, self-soothing, and microbiome building that the hands provide. What the hands are asking for: freedom, most of the time. This does not mean mittens are forbidden. Use them when you genuinely need to, but avoid having your baby wear them the majority of the time. As for those impossible nails, the gentlest approach is a nail file rather than clippers, or trimming while the baby is asleep or nursing when their hands are relaxed and still. Keep the hands free as much as you safely can, because your baby is learning the world through them. Stop 5. And finally, to the very end of the tour, the feet. The part preparing for a job it has not started yet. A baby's feet, like their hands, are a way of experiencing the world. The bones and muscles in the feet develop through use, through feeling surfaces, gripping, flexing, and moving freely. And all of that sensory and muscular development is part of the long preparation for rolling, crawling, and eventually walking. Which brings us to the final, gentle correction on this tour: shoes. Specifically, putting shoes on babies who do not need them. Babies do not need shoes, certainly not hard-soled ones. And even once they begin walking, allowing them to be barefoot, where it is safe, actually helps them learn to use their feet properly. Shoes change the way a baby learns to use the bones and muscles in their feet. A stiff, hard sole holds the foot rigid and immobile, when what the developing foot needs is to feel, flex, and move. What the feet are asking for: barefoot most of the time, wherever it is safe. When shoes are genuinely necessary: cold weather, rough ground. Choose wide, flexible, soft-soled shoes like moccasins rather than tight shoes with thick, hard soles. Like the mittens, the occasional pair of shoes will not make a meaningful difference. It is about what happens the majority of the time. And the majority of the time, the developing foot learns best with nothing on it at all, because the whole body is one principal spine: hips, core, hands, feet. A tour from top to bottom of a body that is building itself faster right now than it ever will again. And notice that every single stop pointed toward the same underlying principle: less is more. The spine wants natural support, not forced positioning. The hips want free movement in the M position, not legs held straight and tight. The core wants the floor, not the container. The hands want freedom, not coverage. The feet want to be bare, not bound. In almost every case, the thing that best supports your baby's development is not a product. It is the absence of the product, and your presence instead. A baby on the ground, free to move, with a parent down on the floor beside them, interacting with them. letting them explore their environment with their hands and feet and ears and mouth and eyes. That is the engine of development. Everything else is, at best, an occasional tool, and at worst, a quiet substitute for the one thing your baby actually needs most: you. None of this requires buying anything. None of it requires doing more. In fact, the entire tour points in the opposite direction, toward doing less, holding more naturally, and trusting the extraordinary fact that your baby's body knows how to build itself if you simply give it the freedom to do so. So the next time you reach for the forward-facing carrier, the propping seat, the jumper, the mittens, or the little shoes, pause. Not with guilt, just with awareness. Ask whether this is a tool you are using occasionally, or a container your baby is living inside. And then, more often than not, choose the floor. Choose the freedom. Choose getting down there with them. Because the best developmental tool ever invented is a parent on the ground, paying attention. And you already have that one. If this tour changed how you see your baby's gear, share it with a new parent who needs to hear it. Leave a comment telling me which of the 5 stops surprised you most. Until next time, less gear, more floor, and as much of you as you can give. Because their whole body is building itself right now. And the best thing you can give it is room to grow.